GALP.
Hey guys, and welcome to GALP. It's me, Bish, and you might be wondering what's been going on. I've been a bit sick, so my apologies. I might be coughing throughout this episode, but you know, it's not that bad. Anyway, so today's episode, I'm just going to go straight into it, and I actually want to talk about a few things, mainly Koei Tecmo related, because you know what, I love Koei Tecmo, and yeah, they're great for the most part. So yes, Koei Tecmo gave us code for Dynasty Warriors Origins DLC, and they also gave us code for Nioh. I do want to mention that with Nioh, there is certain things that I'm not necessarily a big fan of, but that's just because I'm not a fan of Soulsborne games. I'm not a fan of the fact that you can't change your difficulty. I think that would have been very helpful for someone like me who, you know, plays games like Dynasty Warriors or Dynasty Warriors as we call it in the UK, because I button mash. I'm not really good at dodging. I'm only slightly learning how to dodge because of Dynasty Warriors Origins, so I would have wanted an easier way into Nioh. And to be fair with you, Nioh 3 is, in my opinion, the most interesting Nioh out of all of them, because you're basically within the Sengoku era. There's a lot of characters that you might be used to if you're a fan of Sengoku Jidai, which is the Sengoku era, or if you're fans of Samurai Warriors as well. So there are a lot of names that I've noticed, and when I saw Hanzo Hattori in the beginning, I was like, whoa! But otherwise, it is a very interesting game. I don't know what much else to say about it. I haven't really gotten past the first boss, and that's just because of the difficulty. The difficulty is just very difficult for someone like me. I think a lot of people will be like, oh, get good and this and that, which is fine, because that's always the discussion that happens when people mention games like that. They're difficult. Not everyone is attuned to them. I certainly am not. I would have loved to see if there was a easier mode or like a story only mode, which you do get in other games. Dynasty Warriors Origins has that, which is a bit weird because Origins is relatively simple as a game. And some people might argue, I think probably why Koei didn't include an easy mode or a toggle mode or whatever in Nioh 3 is probably because they don't want to get into that whole conversation online. And a lot of people get into it where it's like, well, if you can't play the game, you're not good at the game, then get good. And that's the whole point. I don't have the time to get good. And that's the thing, because we're reviewing games all the time and we're playing games all the time. And to be fair with you, I play games to get away from stress a lot of the time. And Nioh 3 stresses me out. But if you are a fan of that type of game, whether it's Souls games or any other similar style of game, then you'll love this game. And I think if you're a fan of samurai culture and Japanese culture in general, then yeah, you're definitely going to love this game. It's the same sort of vibe that I got from Wolong Fallen Dynasty. And to be fair with you, they are pretty much the same game, whether it's Nioh or Wolong, where the game is set and the story is different, but in essence, they are pretty much the same game. Same sort of layout. There's like shrines that you pray to that act as your checkpoints. You can fight shadows of the fallen, like basically people that die in the game and stuff. You can fight them, their characters, etc., which is very interesting. But yeah, that's all I got to say about Nioh 1, Nioh 2, and Nioh 3, and Wolong Fallen Dynasty. I think, yeah, one thing I really liked about Nioh, actually, I will say this, is the character creation. And I really think that the Nioh character creator has actually made its way to other games. Like we've seen it make its way to Dynasty Warriors in terms of the Empires games, as well as Wild Hearts as well. But it's always nicer looking in Nioh. I guess probably the engine's a lot nicer. It's interesting as well because this is, I believe, the first Nioh game that isn't published directly by Sony. Yeah, which is a very interesting thing. Don't know why that is. It's still, I believe, a Sony exclusive, I think. Let me check. It's on Steam, as we know. Yeah. It's on the Katana engine as well, which is actually quite interesting because the Katana engine is a Koei Tecmo engine that's kind of been used for Wild Hearts, Rise of Ronin. I think they use it for Dynasty Warriors as well, but it's a very old engine. Like it's been going on for a long time. Fun fact, it's actually the engine that Pokopia is running on, which actually I think makes sense. The first time I heard about this engine actually was, I believe, Dynasty Warriors 9, I think. I can't remember. I think that was the first use of that engine was Dynasty Warriors 9. And it wasn't necessarily the best game to show off that engine, to be fair. And yeah, the engine does get updated and it gets used quite frequently from what I can see. They're even using it in Dead or Alive series as well. I don't think they're going to be using it for Dead or Alive 7 or for Dead or Alive 6, but they're using it for the Extreme series. They use it for Fate Samurai Remnant. They used it for Samurai Warriors 5. That's where I heard a lot about it. And it was quite impressive for Samurai Warriors 5. Rise of Ronin. Bear in mind, I think when they were showing it off for Samurai Warriors 5, I mean, because Dynasty Warriors Warriors 9 was such a flop, and then they were showing it off for Samurai Warriors 5, which was during COVID, mind you. So I think people cared more about the Katana engine during that time. And like I said, it's also used for Origins, which I was surprised about. I thought Origins was running on Unreal Engine, which it isn't. I did think it was running on Unreal Engine because Dynasty Warriors 3 is running off Unreal Engine 5. And a lot of the moves look exactly the same. A lot of this stuff looks exactly the same. Unless Koei is changing it from Unreal Engine back to the Katana engine, there's no way for me to verify that until the game comes out, which we don't know when the game is coming out. That is something that I did need to mention because the game got delayed. We should have been playing the game by now, Dynasty Warriors 9. And a lot of people are wondering, well, why is that? Why is the game delayed? I kind of feel like it's been delayed because of Pokopia. I didn't know that Koei Tecmo and Team Ninja, not even Team Ninja, sorry, Omega Force are working on this. Tomihiko Sho is a producer on the game, and so is Mr. Koinuma, which is actually very odd. I get it, it's a big Nintendo title. It's not even considered as one of Nintendo's like special IP, which is a bit weird. In what do I mean by that? Like, for example, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, also on the Katana engine, was developed by Koei Tecmo's AAA game studio and published by Nintendo. Pokopia was published by Nintendo and produced by Omega Force, which to me makes me think like, what is going on with AAA game studio? Like, why have they only released one game? I thought AAA game studio was going to be sort of part of the IPs that Koei maybe can't necessarily touch that much. Like, for example, IPs that are not their own, but it's not the case. It doesn't seem to be the case because Pokopia is developed by Omega Force and by the main of Omega Force as well, the same people that are working on Dynasty Warriors actively. So that makes me think that's probably why it got a delayed release, because probably the team that were working on Dynasty Warriors had maybe some crunch time with Pokopia and they were like, okay, let's just release it and we'll delay our own in-house game for the Nintendo one, because it obviously can't be late for Nintendo, which makes sense. Speaking of Pokemon Pokopia, I actually really enjoy it, and it's actually the game I've been playing the most. I love it because it reminds me a lot of Minecraft, a game I used to play as a child, and actually not even as a child, I used to play it. That was the game that got me into uni. For those that don't know, I studied architecture and my portfolio was just Minecraft buildings and stuff that I made back in the day in Minecraft without the use of creative mode, because creative mode didn't exist at the time, at least on console, because I did it on the Xbox 360. And yeah, that's what got me into university for architecture. I don't work as an architect and you guys know that, but it was still an epic story on my end. I'm a big fan of Pokopia. I like the fact that it's sort of this utopia, hence why it's called Pokopia. So it's a utopia style game like with Pokemon. Think of like Animal Crossing, and it plays a lot like Animal Crossing. There's a lot of UI elements that are very reminiscent of Animal Crossing, but there is so many more things you can do in this game compared to Animal Crossing. There is a story. You don't necessarily have debts in this game like Animal Crossing or anything like that. You have a lot more quote-unquote villages because there's just a lot more Pokemon rather than villages. Your towns and your villages always seem lively. There is like a limit on spawn-ins and stuff, but you can kind of spawn in the Pokemon you want by going to their habitats, and you can also build their habitats, by the way. Go to their habitats and like bring out some honey and it will respawn Pokemon. But there's so much to say about Pokopia. A lot of people are saying it's the game of the year. I don't think it's gonna win game of the year. The reason I say this is because game of the year tends to go to like very heavily story-driven games. We saw that, I think, went to Expedition 33, which is an RPG. So that's the kind of game that wins game of the year. I don't think a game that has that much of a story will win it, or sort of a casual game like this. I say it's casual, but there's a lot of hardcore players playing it. I've been playing it literally day one since its release. I didn't even get a code for it, and I've just been playing it non-stop because it's a game where you can shut your brain off and play and listen to a podcast. And like, I have games like that in my life where, you know, I'm stressed, I come home from work or whatever the case may be, or something might annoy me, and I sit down and I play a game and I'll spend hours and hours and hours. And truly one can say it's an addiction, or has become an addiction, because I start playing it and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is cool. Yeah, I'm gonna put some podcasts in the background, listen to it, and catch up on my day effectively. But what ends up happening is those podcasts end and they run out, and I'm like, oh shit, what am I doing now? And what ends up happening is that I have to go back and play more. So then I discover more podcasts to listen to, if that makes sense. At the moment, there's a lot of language learning podcasts that I'm listening to purely for the content to get me through to play Pokopia, because like I said, it's a game that I just shut my brain off and play. Like, I don't even really know what's happening half the time. I'm just playing it, and then on the weekends I just find myself playing it into the night, and I'm like, oh my god, this is an addiction. It reminds me of back in the day, like what I used to do with Call of Duty. I don't play Call of Duty anymore because of this, because it's just such a time waster as a game. Not to say Pokopia is, because it isn't. because you choose what you do in Pokopia, right? You can build in Pokopia, you can build like prefab buildings, you can make your own buildings out of blocks. There's a lot of ditto transformations that you can transform into and fly, or break through walls, terraform. There's a lot of things that you can do in this game, and yeah, it's just a fantastic game. I think, is it worth the £50 price point? Hell yeah. Is it worth you buying a Nintendo Switch 2 to play? I don't think it is. And I wonder why it's the case that it's running on Nintendo Switch 2 and not Switch 1. I don't think it's an engine issue, because guess what? Dynasty Warriors 9 was on Switch 2. Was on Switch 1, as in Empires, Dynasty Warriors Origins, Age of Imprisonment even, which I believe also Age of Imprisonment is a Switch 2 game. Fire Emblem 3 Hopes, which is also on the Katana engine. Samurai Warriors 5, I think, as well. So a lot of these games that were created for the Katana engine are running really well on the Switch 1. So it might be the case that Nintendo is running it specifically on Switch 2 to increase sales, because I haven't felt like there is a definitive game to get the Switch 2, right? It doesn't feel like, oh yeah, this is the game that you need a Switch 2 for. And maybe that's what Nintendo are pushing with here, because Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment wasn't that game for me. Although, once again, I spent a lot of time in Age of Imprisonment, and that was a game that I bought day one, and a game that I spent a lot of time in because of how cool it was. It was really fun game. And once again, it was one of those games where on a podcast and I play. And I think over time I've become more of that sort of casual gamer. Like, I don't want to care much about story. I just want to do mindless gameplay and sort of forget about it, because that's what it is for me. Even now when I'm playing Pokemon Leaf Green, a game I've never played before, because I didn't get into Pokemon until Pokemon Sun and Moon in terms of actually playing my first ever Pokemon game. So yeah, going back and playing these original Pokemon games is pretty cool. Like, don't get me wrong, I knew the story of a lot of these Pokemon games because I look up lore online and I'd watch like gameplay videos and let's plays and stuff and like all that kind of, and Nuzlocke and all that. So I know about it, but I've never really experienced Pokemon for myself. So I decided, okay, I'm going to get it on the eShop, and I bought myself Leaf Green and I bought Fire Red. And there's a reason I bought Fire Red as well, because I bought Fire Red in Japanese. And you're like, what? Yes, I bought the Japanese version on the Japanese eShop. And you're like, why, Bish? Because I'm learning Japanese at the moment, and I feel like I need to immerse myself in the game, especially if I'm playing it for the first time. The game doesn't use any kanji from what I know, so a lot of it is hiragana, katakana, because it's a game designed for kids, right? So to my knowledge, there is minimal or no kanji in this game, so at least I can sort of get my reading up and my grammar. So yeah, that's the reason I got it. And you're like, well, that's a bit of a weird one just to learn Japanese. I think a lot of people, when they're learning a language, and I hear this a lot with English, where a lot of my friends are like, oh yeah, I learned English from watching Friends, or I learned English from watching How I Met Your Mother, or something like that. It's usually a lot with Friends and stuff, to be fair, just because Friends has been syndicated worldwide at this point. I guess the same with How I Met Your Mother, but more so as Friends. And yeah, so they sort of immerse themselves in the language by watching television. And to be fair with you, there isn't much TV shows that I would want to watch in Japanese. I mean, there are Japanese TV shows and there is anime, but I find that anime is sort of over-exaggerated in terms of the way of speaking. The same with a lot of dubs as well. But we don't have the option of getting Japanese dubs in the UK for a lot of sitcoms and things like that. On some services they do have it. On Netflix, not so much. I think maybe HBO might have. I know The Simpsons you can watch it in Japanese, and a lot of the Disney stuff you can watch in Japanese. But yeah, I think when I was in Japan, I was watching House on Netflix and it defaulted to Japanese, and it sounded pretty cool. I'm a big fan of House, so one of my favorite TV shows. And yeah, like I was saying, that was an interesting tangent, let's say. Let's talk about the other games that I've been playing. I've been playing a lot of Civ as well. It's once again one of the games that I shut my brain off and I play, and it doesn't really matter. I can always go back and continue where I left off. And the same is like Dynasty Warriors Origins for me, because I've been playing Dynasty Warriors for such a long time that I don't really care about the story anymore. I just skip over a lot of it, and I did that with Origins to sort of play through and experience the game. And yeah, I did that with Origins. And to be fair with you, would I say Origins is the best Dynasty Warriors game? No, it's not. In my opinion, I'm very old school when it comes to Dynasty Warriors. I do like a lot of the new features that I have in the game in comparison to previous Dynasty Warriors games, and it makes sense why Tomihiko Sho and the Omega Force team mentioned that they are naming this Origins as opposed to Dynasty Warriors 10. It makes me think Dynasty Warriors 10 is going to be a more traditional style experience, potentially running off Unreal Engine. And what do I mean by traditional style experience? I mean like Dynasty Warriors 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7. It's not like that. It's very different. It's very strategical. It has elements from games like Kasen and games like Bladestorm and games like Nioh even. So a lot of stuff to get used to. There's a lot of difficulty in the game, but you know, I haven't been playing this game on easy mode because I can, and it's great fun even then. But even on easy mode, there are some battles that I can't actually do, even after being leveled up like to the highest level, and even throughout the DLC, your levels carry over, but they're almost irrelevant because it says the levels that are posted on each mission are irrelevant, because when you get to the DLC, it tells you that this is the level that you should be recommended to, but the game adjusts itself in terms of difficulty based on your level, which I don't like. I'm not a fan of that, and it gets a bit annoying when you're playing through other people's storylines. So I play through all of them except through the Dongjua storyline. I haven't finished the Dongjua one because the final mission of the Dongjua storyline is for you to defeat Lu Bu, which I had a very difficult time doing in Hulao Gate in the base game, and I equally had a very difficult time doing so in the DLC, and it's not a mission you can skip. I like how the game has the ability to like go through checkpoints and like start from a particular style of checkpoint, but when the mission is purely like a battle like that, at what checkpoint are you gonna do? It's like you either start at the beginning or start at the right at the middle where you've already used all of your equipment, or just quit and try and hype yourself up again. But the problem is, the higher level you get, the more difficult that mission becomes. Even using like the best weapons in the game, I find it quite a struggle. And yeah, I get it. Lu Bu's supposed to be difficult. I do understand that. And I do like that, the challenge of it, because I remember the first time beating Lu Bu in Origins at Hulao Gate, but I don't really see the need to repeat that same mission. Effectively, it's the same mission, right? Even though it's a different setting, even though it's a different faction, it's the same mission at the end of the day. The goal is just to defeat Lu Bu. So it plays out the same, but on a much bigger map. And the issue with it being on a much bigger map is, back in the day, you can hide from Lu Bu, especially on these bigger maps, and come back and his health would be the same. But he regens health and he regens all of these attacks and his shields, and it gets really annoying. So I'm personally not necessarily the biggest fan of that. But the DLC is pretty cool. There are some things in the DLC that I think don't really make sense to me. You get access to the inn, but also at the same time, you lose the access to free roam around the map. And there isn't really much to do on that map anyway, but the fact that the map is sort of being used as a chessboard, effectively, it kind of reminds me of like one of those Mortal Kombat games where all the characters were chess pieces. But this is where I'm saying it reminds me more of games like Kasen and Bladestorm, because it puts out the characters on there and you choose which battles you want to go and fight, and you move your little pieces around. But they're not pieces, they're actual like characters. So you move your characters around on the board effectively, and you choose what battles to do. And even if you don't want to go into a battle, you can use like strategic effects and like cause a fire attack and lower the enemy's health before you even get into a battle, which is very cool. And for someone that is strategic in those kind of games, I like that it's being implemented in Dynasty Warriors, but not within the main game. I like that. The one thing I don't like about is that it feels like the DLC is separated from everything else. Even the in-game currency, or the in-game currency is the same, but the skill points are different between DLC and base game, and the skills that you gain in the DLC do not transfer over to the base game, which sucks. And I get it, because there are some modes and some weapons that are only available in the DLC, if that makes sense. However, I would like to see things like health stats and attack stats make its way over into the base game, which Koei's done this before with DLCs and they've made it work. I don't understand why they haven't made it work with Origins. It's almost like the Origins DLC, it's its own separate game. And to be fair with you, it was very repetitive. You know, you did Yellow Turbans, and then after Yellow Turbans, you did Dongjua, and they introduced a new character, but it's like, I don't really care for this new character because you could have picked someone else. We've been asking for like Liao Hua for ages. We didn't get Liao Hua. We've been asking for like all the characters to return. We haven't been getting those characters, and instead they have to make completely unique characters that no one cares about. This is my main issue with Origins, that there are characters I don't care about. I don't care about the main character of Origins, because why should I care about it? I'm an old school Dynasty Warriors fan. I think for me, as an old school fan, I care about the existing characters. And if you were to introduce new characters, make them characters that were actually in the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, you know? Not characters that no one cares about. Like, okay, maybe I might get some hate for this, but I don't care for the main character. I really don't. Like, his weapon is sort of reused and recycled. And yeah, as a Dynasty Warriors fan, I like Origins just for the gameplay mechanics. But in terms of story, it just feels a bit naff. It's a nice retelling of the Shinsangoku Musou story. And it was nice that it ended at Chobi, because the original game, I think Dynasty Warriors 2 ended at Rujang Plains, which was one mission away from Chobi. So, you know, that was fine and I was okay with that. But yeah, this is the thing that I really want to see. I want to see more of that. And I think if you played as if you played as Wu, I think your final battle was Chobi, actually, from Dynasty Warriors 2. I'm more excited for Dynasty Warriors 3 remake, because I've never played Dynasty Warriors 3, and I'm holding it off because I want to experience that old school style of game again, you know? And yeah, that's it. That's all I kind of think about in terms of origins and things like that. That's my personal opinion. I will be doing an episode focusing on other games, other Koei games as well, because there have been some very interesting announcements recently with regards to Koei Tecmo. Specifically, one of my favorite titles of all time, Blue Reflection, and we did many episodes regarding Blue Reflection. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and that's all I really got to say, to be fair with you. I would love to do more episodes, but it's just very difficult at the moment with my health and all that. So you kind of see me as I come, I guess, and it will usually be for games that I do want to talk about. Blue Reflection. I didn't do any reviews for Fatal Frame. I didn't even ask Koei for code for Fatal Frame. We did an episode regarding Dead or Alive 6 last round and DOA 7 with Jacob, and that should be coming out soon. Like I said, I'm looking at all of my press releases from Koei, and there's a lot of press releases that I haven't sort of gone through, and games that I haven't really requested, if that makes sense, because it's like, well, what's the point? If that makes sense. Like, yeah. I don't know what to say, to be fair. Anyways, I'm looking at all of these other press. I get so many press releases that are just kind of insane. Yeah, I get a lot of press releases, which is very interesting. But I don't actually get the time to review them as such anymore because it's hard. Like, there's so many games coming out, and so many games that are very interesting to me that are coming out, and I haven't necessarily had the time to look into it. That's why I'm doing episodes on what I've currently been playing. And I think with GALP, unless it's a game that's brand new, like Dynasty Warriors 3 Remastered, or a game that means a lot to me that is new, I won't be covering it. So just bear that in mind. It might affect how the podcast is, but at the end of the day, I'm sort of gotten to a point where if you want to listen, great. Share the show. If you don't, then that's fine as well. So, but yeah, share the show around, especially on Spotify, because if you do, we switched hosts recently. Actually, I'm going to give you a little bit of inside baseball. We switched hosts recently from another company, which I'm not really allowed to say, but we were being charged through the nose. And then when we left, they were like, oh yeah, we can give you a discount of like 70% for you to stay with us. And I was like, why didn't you give me that discount to begin with? You know, you made me spend a year, and I spent like over $2,000 on their service. So we switched back to Spotify. But for us to get Spotify monetization, it's weird because it's not based on your overall views. It's based on your views on Spotify. So if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, we'd love it if you can switch to Spotify, just so we can get monetization running again and actually do the shows that we want to do. And that applies to all the podcasts that we do. So be sure to listen on Spotify, and Will we be doing like special early access on Spotify? Probably not, until we probably get more episodes sort of coming out on a regular basis. Then we can do that. But until then, bye. And I'm not going to say stay sexy, unfortunately. Oh, that's another thing. I do want to talk a bit about Danganronpa. So when we do that, we will hopefully try our best to get Jo if she's available. If not, it'll just be me and Jacob. And the return of Stay Sexy. Anyway. See you guys on the next episode. Next time on Dragon Ball Z. Don't know if I'm allowed to say that because it isn't Dragon Ball Z. But anyway, see you guys. Bye.